It was a night that no one expected. Elon Musk's son X stepping into the light to reveal a secret that shook the world. Everyone thought he'd follow the path of tech and innovation, but instead, he spoke about something far deeper: his faith in Jesus. The room fell silent as X's voice cracked with emotion, telling a story of struggle, hope, and an unshakable relationship. For years, his faith had been a quiet, private refuge, until that moment when it became impossible to hide. What he shared wasn't just words. It was a raw testimony that left even the hardest hearts soft. This wasn't about fame or attention, but about a journey that saved him from the darkest places. The secret he revealed was more powerful than any invention. It was a life transformed by grace. Eyes filled with tears, Mel Gibson couldn't hold back his own as X's words pierced through every soul present. That night, the world saw not just Elon Musk's son, but a young man chosen to inspire millions. The journey had only begun, and it was a story the world desperately needed to hear. Before we continue, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. For more inspiring stories, behind the glamorous headlines and bright lights was a childhood filled with shadows and silent battles. X struggled quietly with loneliness, feeling lost amidst the towering expectations and constant public gaze. The pressures of legacy and fame were heavy chains he carried every single day. No one saw the tears he shed in secret or the prayers whispered in the dark. His heart wrestled with doubt, wondering if he could ever find peace in such a chaotic world. But in those darkest moments, a flicker of light began to grow inside him, a whisper of hope. Jesus wasn't just a story from books. He became a presence that comforted and steadied his fragile soul. That faith was the anchor he clung to, even when the storm raged around him. What seemed like weakness was actually the hidden strength that would define his future. These childhood shadows were the soil where his faith took root, preparing him for what lay ahead. One night changed everything. X found himself on his knees, desperate, praying for a miracle he couldn't explain. It wasn't about fame or success. It was a plea from a broken heart searching for meaning. He asked for guidance, for strength to face the emptiness that haunted him every day. In that moment, something shifted, an invisible presence wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Tears streamed down his face as peace flooded his soul, a peace he had never known before. That prayer became a turning point, the beginning of a relationship that would redefine his life. He realized faith wasn't about perfection, but about trusting when everything felt uncertain. That night, X experienced grace firsthand, a gift that changed his path forever. The miracle wasn't the answer he expected, but it was exactly what his heart needed. From that moment on, he walked differently, with hope, courage, and a new purpose. The world's first glimpse of X's faith came during a private meeting with Mel Gibson, a moment charged with emotion and raw honesty. As X shared his journey, his voice trembled, revealing wounds that fame had never healed. Mel Gibson, known for his own spiritual battles, listened deeply, moved beyond words. It was a conversation about pain, redemption, and the fragile beauty of faith found in unexpected places. The young man's testimony struck a chord, reminding Gibson of his own search for grace. Tears filled Mel's eyes, not from sorrow, but from witnessing a soul being set free. This meeting wasn't planned, but it became a sacred exchange that touched both their hearts. It showed that no matter who we are, everyone carries a story that deserves to be heard. For X, it was a moment of validation, faith recognized and honored by someone he deeply respected. That day planted seeds that would bloom into a public testimony inspiring millions worldwide. What started as a private revelation soon exploded across social media, reaching millions within hours. X's heartfelt words about Jesus, faith, and Healing resonated with people from all walks of life. The video wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was raw, vulnerable, and real. Comments poured in from fans, skeptics, and believers alike, each touched in unexpected ways. Some called it a moment of courage. Others said it was a breath of fresh hope in a cynical world. The narrative about Elon Musk's son shifted overnight from tech prodigy to spiritual warrior. His message challenged the idea that faith and modern success can't coexist. For many, it was a reminder that behind every public persona is a deeply human story. The viral spread was a testimony that grace transcends status, age, and expectation. And for X, it was just the beginning of a journey that would change his life and others forever. Behind the viral moments and public admiration, X fought silent battles no one could see, doubts, fears, and loneliness eating away at his soul. The pressure to live up to his father's legacy was immense, a weight crushing his spirit daily. Fame often masks pain, but for X, it was impossible to hide the emptiness inside. His faith wasn't a shield against hardship, but a lifeline during the storms that rage in private. At times, the world's eyes felt like a cage, making his journey even harder to navigate. Yet in the silence, he found strength, not from success or status, but from something far greater. Every night spent in prayer deepened his connection with Jesus, the one who never turned away. These unseen struggles shaped the man he was, becoming humble, grounded, and unshakable. X's story was no fairy tale. It was real life, messy and miraculous at once. And it was this honesty that would touch hearts worldwide and change perceptions forever. X wrote a letter, not for fame, but for healing, a message that would break down walls and reach into broken hearts. His words spoke of grace, forgiveness, and a love that never fails, even when life feels unbearable. This letter became a beacon for those lost in darkness, reminding them they were not alone. It wasn't the letter's style or eloquence, but its raw honesty that moved people deeply. In a world hungry for truth, X's vulnerability was a breath of fresh air. The letter reached corners of the world X had never dreamed of touching. Stories poured in, people sharing how his words sparked hope in their own lives. X realized faith wasn't just a private journey, but a powerful force connecting souls across oceans. That letter was more than words. It was a lifeline extended to the hurting and hopeless. And with each story of healing, X's mission became clearer: to share this grace endlessly. There came a day when X knew his faith couldn't stay silent anymore. It had to roar like a lion. Standing before thousands, he spoke not of science or technology, but of his relationship with Jesus. His words were raw, fearless, and filled with an authenticity that captivated every listener. The crowd was stunned. Here was the son of a tech genius choosing faith over fame. He told them about the battles he fought, the prayers that saved him, and the grace that changed him. For many, it was a revelation that faith and intellect aren't enemies, but powerful allies. X's courage inspired others to step out of shadows and embrace their own journeys. That day marked a turning point, a young man using his platform to light up the darkest places. The world listened, hearts opening to a message often ignored in today's noisy world. And for X, the loudest voice was the one that spoke truth, hope, and love. Not everyone believed at first. Skeptics questioned X's story, his faith, and his sudden transformation. But over time, doubt gave way to curiosity, and curiosity led to belief. People witnessed changes in X they couldn't explain: peace in chaos, kindness in conflict, light in darkness. His humility and honesty challenged hardened hearts to soften and open. Stories of lives changed by his testimony spread, breaking down walls of disbelief. Even some of the harshest critics began asking questions they never dared before. Faith that once seemed distant became tangible, real, and deeply personal to many. This transformation wasn't just about X. It was a ripple effect touching millions worldwide. His journey showed that belief is often born from witnessing courage and grace in action. And as doubt faded, a powerful new chapter of hope and faith emerged for all. The heart of X's story was a promise, a divine vow that nothing could break or erase. This promise was not made by man, but by Jesus himself, to never leave or forsake us. X held on to this promise through every trial, every tear, and every moment of uncertainty. It was the anchor that kept him grounded when the world around him spun out of control. This promise transformed fear into faith, despair into hope, and weakness into strength. Sharing this promise became X's mission, to remind the world of an unending, unconditional love. In the darkest nights, this promise shone like a beacon, guiding him safely home. The power of this divine promise isn't just a story, it's an invitation for all to experience. For X, it was more than hope. It was life itself, breathed into every step he took. And as he shared this truth, the world watched, inspired, and forever changed by a promise kept. Just when X thought his journey had reached a quiet plateau, an unexpected visitor knocked on his door, shifting everything he believed. This visitor wasn't just any stranger. They carried a message wrapped in mystery and hope. Their presence stirred something deep inside X, challenging his faith in ways he never imagined. Conversations that followed peeled back layers of doubt and uncertainty, revealing hidden truths. Sometimes, the most profound moments come unannounced, in the middle of ordinary days. This encounter became a catalyst, propelling X into a new season of spiritual awakening. It reminded him that faith is never static. It grows through unexpected challenges and divine interruptions. The visitor's words echoed in his heart, inviting him to trust beyond what he could see. It was a reminder God's plans often arrive wrapped in mystery and surprise. And in that moment, X realized his story was far from over. It was just beginning. Sometimes, the loudest sermons are preached in silence, a truth X learned during nights spent alone with God. Silence can be unsettling, but for X, it became a sacred space for reflection and healing. In those quiet moments, he confronted his fears, regrets, and deepest hopes without distraction. The stillness was where he heard the softest whispers of grace, gently guiding his steps. Words weren't always necessary. Faith grew in the sacred pauses between prayer and breath. This silence was not empty, but full, a divine presence filling every crack in his heart. It taught him patience, trust, and the power of waiting on God's timing. For X, silence became a language of love, stronger than any declaration spoken aloud. And as he embraced this quiet, his faith blossomed in ways loud words never could. The weight of expectations can crush even the strongest souls, and X carried more than his share. Family legacy, public scrutiny, and personal ambitions created an unbearable pressure cooker inside him. But grace entered like a gentle rain, softening the hardest places of his heart. It reminded him he wasn't defined by others' opinions or his past mistakes. Grace gave him permission to fail, to stumble, and to rise again without shame. It was a radical freedom, liberating him from the chains of perfectionism and pride. Through grace, X discovered the courage to rewrite his story on his own terms. He learned that true strength lies not in achievement, but in surrender and trust. And with each step forward, grace whispered promises of hope, healing, and new beginnings. There was a prayer, one simple, desperate plea, that changed everything for X in a single moment. It was raw and honest, spilling from a heart battered by doubt and fear. In that prayer, he laid down his defenses and begged for clarity, for peace, for truth. And God answered. not with thunder or fireworks, but with a profound stillness. That silence spoke louder than any words, washing over X like a wave of healing. Doubts didn't vanish overnight, but their power weakened, replaced by a quiet confidence. It was a turning point, the moment faith moved from theory to reality. That prayer became a lifeline, anchoring X when storms threatened to overwhelm him. It showed him that faith is a journey, walked step by step through trust. And that day, his heart was forever changed, ready to face whatever came next. Tears are often seen as weakness, but for X, they became the purest language of his faith. They weren't just sorrow or pain, they were expressions of surrender and hope. Each tear told a story of battles fought, prayers whispered, and grace received. Crying became a release, a cleansing flood washing away doubt and despair. In vulnerability, he found strength, the courage to be real in a world of masks. Tears connected him deeply with the God who weeps alongside us in every struggle. Through tears, X learned to embrace brokenness as a doorway to healing. They became a bridge between his heart and the divine, a sacred conversation without words. And those tears inspired others, showing that faith is as much about emotion as belief. In that moment, tears weren't a sign of defeat, but a powerful testimony of grace. That morning, something inside X shifted forever, a faith no storm could break or shadow dim. Years of questioning, pain, and searching led to this undeniable moment of clarity. Faith wasn't just a belief anymore, it was a living, breathing force inside him. He stood tall, knowing every struggle had been preparing him for this strength. Doubts tried to creep in, but they faltered against the armor of experience and grace. It was the kind of faith that whispers, "You're not alone," even in the darkest nights. That day, hope wasn't fragile. It was fierce, unstoppable, unshakable. Every prayer, every tear, every moment of silence had led to this. Faith transformed from a fragile spark into an unquenchable fire burning in his soul. And from that sunrise forward, X knew nothing could ever take that away. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, and X finally embraced its liberating power. Carrying anger and resentment only chained him to a past that no longer served him. Letting go wasn't easy. It meant confronting pain and choosing grace over bitterness. But in that surrender, he discovered freedom deeper than he ever imagined possible. Forgiveness healed wounds that no medicine or therapy could touch. It softened hardened places in his heart, opening space for peace and love. X learned that forgiving others was less about them and more about his own soul's health. Each act of forgiveness broke invisible chains, unburdening his spirit to soar. It was a radical act of courage and faith, one that transformed his entire life. Through forgiveness, X found a new beginning, unshackled and free to truly live. Doubt isn't the enemy of faith. For X, it became the doorway to something greater. Questioning everything forced him to search deeper, to wrestle with truth and meaning. Instead of running away, he leaned in, embracing uncertainty as part of the journey. Doubt sparked curiosity and humility, cracking open his heart to real transformation. Through the struggle, he learned that faith doesn't mean having all the answers. It means trusting God even when the path is unclear and shadows loom. Doubt became a sacred space for growth, a testing ground for resilience. X realized that faith and doubt dance together. One cannot exist without the other. That tension pushed him closer to God than certainty ever could. And with every doubt faced, his faith grew stronger, more authentic, and alive. Miracles don't always come with fanfare or lightning bolts. Sometimes they arrive quietly. What happened to X was nothing short of miraculous, yet it stunned everyone who witnessed it. It was a moment that defied logic, a tangible sign of hope and grace. This miracle wasn't about fame or spectacle. It was deeply personal, and profound. It reminded everyone that God's power moves in mysterious and beautiful ways. X stood at the center, overwhelmed but filled with awe and gratitude. The miracle rewrote the narrative of his life, turning pain into purpose. Skeptics doubted, but those who believed saw the undeniable hand of divine intervention. This moment proved that faith could move mountains and change destinies. And for X, it was proof that he was never alone. Grace was always near. Every journey has an ending. But for X, this chapter was just the beginning of a larger story. He looked back with gratitude, knowing every step was part of God's perfect plan. The lessons learned, the battles fought, the faith earned, all now a legacy. His story became a beacon for others wrestling with doubt, pain, and hope. It's a reminder that grace is bigger than any one life or moment. X's journey taught him that faith is a lifelong adventure, filled with surprises. Though this story closes, the ripples of his transformation will touch countless lives. He now walks forward with a heart wide open and faith unshakable. The future remains unwritten, but one thing is clear: grace will always lead the way. And in that truth, X finds peace, purpose, and an unbreakable hope for what lies ahead. What are your thoughts on X Musk's incredible journey of faith and its impact on Mel Gibson and the world? Where are you watching this video from? We'd love to hear from you in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel, liking the video, and sharing it with others to spread the inspiration. Note: the script adheres to the original wording, includes the requested sentence after the first paragraph, adds the question at the end with the location prompt, and ends with a polite call to action.